Good evening. It's a little bit after 2100 UTC on Sunday, the 6th September 3305. Welcome to the Prismatic Congress. Today with the freestyle edition. This is Lord Warden Mistler, today taking over for Jeff Ryan, who is unavailable to host this show and told us so just a little bit before we started recording. So we have to freestyle a bit and let's see where we go with this. The Prismatic Congress is the broadcast by the Prismatic Imperium based in QBO, an active player group that makes up part of the Ashling Deval community and specializes in role-playing. First, let's start with general news. A little bit has happened this week, especially in terms of people being loud. We have had a follow-up patch to the September patch that was supposed to address a few bugs that appeared, but it also introduced a few more bugs. And accordingly, there was a lot of people ranting in the official forums on Reddit. We also had we mentioned the petition the last time, and there was an official response by a Frontier developer who tried to address or say a few words about how they why they are so calm, but that only led to more people complaining. I think we'll talk about this in the discussion later on a little bit more. But yeah, the patches happened, and first let's go to the branch news, and we'll start with the branch of Vigor. I'll just continue with the branch news for Vigor myself today, and there's not much going on in the branch of Vigor. Our BGS continues to be stable. We have a new expansion for the Adamantine Union running right now. Last week I mentioned that the first expansion was successful and went into the Astromuse system, which was actually a little bit surprising because there's this kind of rule that you cannot re-enter a system that you have retreated out of before, and this is not the case for the Astromuse system. So I suppose there's some kind of threshold, maybe a year or two or so. It was way before my time, where you can re-enter a system that you were in before. And with Astromuse now being an Adamantine Union system, we are going into the system we expected to go before, which is the Arapani system, and that should happen over the next week. The PI BGS itself is pretty stable. We're in continuing maintenance mode there, and make sure to check out all our goals and objectives on the appropriate Discord channels. Currently, we have a war going on in the Adamantine Union space that you can participate in, and much more. Keep your eyes up in these channels. And with that, just let me pass over to Lord Headmaster Tekaran for the branch of Sight.
Well, thanks for giving me the word. I have the following announcements for this week. I am ill.
Oh.
As you can probably hear by my voice, a flu got me.
I had no idea.
That should not concern me. I have a lot of paperwork to do, especially since Jeff is still not at home and I'm out, cruising around somewhere beyond the stars. However, as you've probably noticed, I've postponed the 3rd annual site expedition. It's now 1 week earlier. I hope all of you can still make it. If not, we'll have to work out an emergency plan. I'm also working on a route map for the moment. I have 7 stops planned on the way through that expedition. You're going to like it, because these nebulae have a lot of different colors and interesting places to visit. Rather than that, if you read Galnet, you might have noticed that currently there is a poor harvest in the core systems of human civilization. It looks like Kubio is not impacted yet, but we want to ensure that it's not going to happen. I've contacted Life's Rift for prevention of any possible harvest problems in our system. Let's just hope nothing serious is going to happen. And for that, the first time ever, I'll introduce you, our Lord Herald from the Branch of Mind, who's going to overtake for the first time ever the news for Mind.
Well, hello. Let me start by saying it's quite awesome to be the Lord Herald. A very egotistical position. So yeah, this is my first time being able to make it with the show. Our schedules have lined up this week, so that's been quite nice. The purpose of the Branch of Mind is to facilitate our culture, kind of help keep the new players that are coming in kind of catch up on what our story is. You know how groups have been around this long end up having a lot of little, I don't know, inside jokes and stuff. Just a lot of backstory things, and it's kind of, it's fun to automate the process of delivering that information to people. Um, so this last month, I've been focusing mostly on scripting behind the scenes for stuff that is yet to come. Um, Currently, right now, my Vice Herald is working on a new battle system for the way we were waging wars. The Baltic Tiger event, I think, was kind of fun, even though I wasn't able to quite finish it when I wanted to. That will finish, but next season I want to really open up on the possibilities of that. So she'll be taking the next few days to develop a new system where we kind of boost the numbers, make things a little bigger. And I think the biggest change yet is to disassociate the commanding officers from the units. So now you'll be essentially picking all of your units in whatever configuration you want for a battle, and then you assign your leaders, which have bonuses that override the basically what they add boosts and sometimes negative effects as well. And so you can really customize your battle for the specific scenario, which there'll be a lot more. Something I barely played with was in the Baltic Tiger Hunt. There were regions of deserts, savannas, and then forests. And depending on people's roles, that really played out whether or not the weather was bad. Um, I really want to expand on that and make it less about the roles and more about people's scouting efforts. Um, so that's the biggest thing I'm working on right now. I'm creating visual avatars for all of the commanding officers that you'll be able to hire, and so that covers basically what I'm doing. That and the legacy items. I am creating a legacy item, which, by the way, if you haven't received a legacy item yet, um, that's an item for roleplay that is very specific to you. The only requirements are that you've been active, and that you intend to be around. I will create a personalized item specifically for you. It will have 1% sale value, so if you lose it, it's gone. But if somebody else wants to buy it after you abandon it, then it's going to be a lot more expensive. 50,000 diamonds, in fact, where you'll only sell it for 500. So if you haven't gotten one yet, message me about your request, some ideas. I'm happy to brainstorm with you, and we'll try to nail out a good concept. I haven't created one for myself. I think it's the hardest to create one for me. Maybe just because I play such a bizarre character that doesn't get involved in anything. But so anyway, those are the main things going on with Mind. Also, we will be recruiting. I need somebody who facilitates recruitment efforts outside of the Prismatic Imperium, just so that we get some new members that are planning on sticking around. So that will be a position coming up that replaces what was originally the ambassador role. We don't really need ambassadors from Mind anymore. So if you're interested in doing that, recruitment stuff, I will be providing materials for that. But if that interests you, message me because Branch of Mind is looking for people, and we offer great incentives like awesome sports cars
Ugh.
and cologne.
Sports cars are awesome.
Sports cars and cologne is an excellent combination.
And more fake articles, right?
Fake. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I think the theme for this last week in roleplay has been what people believe is fact. So, if people believe what they hear on the news, then it is the truth.
No.
No?
Yeah.
No.
I
We should
mean,
have the
you're
Vector
welcome.
join.
You
No.
are welcome to have your own opinions. We definitely welcome opinions, especially if it aligns with what we believe.
Yeah.
The lore duties of the heralds is to make sure that our culture aligns with what we dictate would be the most prosperous for the future. And so one of my jobs is in lore is to dismiss anything that would make us stray from that. So that could include memes, certain breeds of cats, certain politicians.
You shouldn't enter Emerald then because you're going to dismiss everything in there.
Yeah,
of
for
I
cats.
can
sure.
already sense it.
Must be some
Yeah.
precedent for breed of cats.
It does seem like Mind is heavily focused against Emerald site at the moment, but that is all we just blame it on my Vice Herald. I don't know what her personal grudge is, or more likely she just hasn't gotten around to writing articles that attack everyone else. Kind of started with Tegeron and ended there. So yeah, I enjoy Vector, but it's supposed to be phony news, and it's supposed to be pretty ridiculous and attacks everybody.
No.
If you
Every
actually
third
take,
article is about me.
presently, yes,
Or there are pieces core on the branch of side.
there's a couple about me as well, but that I hope to see that expand in the future. But if you
Yeah,
ever
he
take
just
if you ever
he-
take Vector seriously, you have to reevaluate your priorities in life.
there's a huge difference between not existing and being accused of turning stuff and commanders into frogs and various other animals.
That's true. What are the other animals?
I've
I've
I
only heard
don't even want
frogs.
to mention it, no.
Okay. I'll
Anyway,
have to brainstorm some ideas.
to follow up a little bit on the news as we usually do, I'm very happy that you have joined us today with Mind News. And I have a few follow-up things there. First of all, legacy items. Do you have more details on what the requirements are and if there are certain limitations, like what would be too overpowered, what can we expect to get from a legacy item?
Well, I want legacy items to actually have some practical advantage. So, in some people's cases, they're like, I want this item that only means something to me, something personal. Um, and that's why I like to have a dialogue with that person as we kind of work out, what would I consider too extreme. Techeron had an excellent one. I think it was like an
Indeed,
Iron
yeah.
Man suit that did
Yeah.
all the things. You no longer needed spaceships. You could just fly around in the suit.
No, it was not that easy.
Oh, yes, it was. I should read it.
I thought you mentioned the item that is on the market now.
Now, the
Because I
item
like
that actually
the
made it
symbols.
to the market is after we came together and said, all right, so I think your original idea is overpowered.
Okay.
But Techeron had a second idea. He's like, all right, what about a shield that supports not just me, but also my friends?
I think that's a pretty cool item, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, that's an excellent idea, and then I wanted to make it particularly special, um, in that it protects against all the three major damage types. Um, since there's kind of a balance of, are we using thermal weapons or are we using kinetic weapons? And then we have explosive that kind of negates both of those. Um, his shield protects at least against those three. Um, so that was me saying, okay, it needs to be super powerful because thinking in the future one day, Techeron sells or loses that item, it's going to become available in the market.
Oh, I am not going to lose this one.
Maybe not in your case, because you're planning on being here forever.
Yeah.
But people retiring is pretty much inevitable, and I don't want items that just sit in dormant inventories forever. Especially if it's an
Mhm.
exclusive, unique item that only one person can have. And so that will become available on the market for anyone to buy. And for that reason, I kind of want it to have, something special that would make it where someone would want it. Um, Anarch's got a special orb that the common version doesn't really do anything, but is just a companion. But his version will set out a static electric discharge. So that's why you might consider paying the extra price for, a 50,000 diamond version as opposed to a 500 diamond version,
All right.
which is pretty steep, but it's a legacy item.
Yep.
Does that answer?
What about the prerequisites? So pretty much anyone who's in the group, at least for a little bit, can message you about it?
Yeah, anyone's willing. Anyone who messages me, I will consider it. Like even if you're brand new, um, and you're like, "Hey, I haven't been around very long, but I am planning on being around, and I want a special item," then yeah. I mean, these are items that I assume you brought with you. Um, it's essentially just 500 free diamonds because if you sell your legacy item, it's only 500 diamonds that you get
Right.
returned. Um, so it's at 1% of its value. So it's not like I'm giving a handout that you could sell and become super rich and break our balance or anything. So even if it's your first week or you're still on probation, you can still have a special item if that's going to be to your benefit in roleplay. So there really aren't that many requirements. If you sell it or you want to buy someone else's that it was sold, it does have a very steep reputation requirement of 3,000 points. Um, so I don't want anyone who's brand new having the ability to collect items like this.
Right.
But you can have your own personal one that was designed for you. It just takes me a little bit of time, so don't expect it to be in your hands by tomorrow. I can do it that fast, but I usually won't. I need time to think about it and then actually sit down and do the art.
Cool stuff, though. Yeah, thanks. Another thing you mentioned is the new token system with separate commanders. In what way would you say does this affect the gameplay? Like, if you apply this would you apply this to the Baltic Hunt right now? What would change for the player?
Well, it's currently not active, and I don't know if it will be active before the Baltic hunt finishes, simply because I don't want to go in and change all the values. I don't have the details on how the system will truly work because I have put that entirely in Ramirez's hands. She's going to write out the
Okay.
battle system. It's what she enjoys doing, and she'll come back to me. By functionality, I don't know if it will require anything on the bot or not, or through the website or not. Um, but what's currently being discussed is that a battalion will be a lot larger now. So right now it's 500 soldiers broken up, uh, as different types of units. And now we're just going to turn it into a legion, a true legion, which in the Prismatic Imperium is 10,000 soldiers. So we're going from 500 to 10,000 from one token.
That's quite a jump.
It is a massive jump, but it's going to be very important for the next season, which I don't want to go into details on.
No spoilers.
But we're definitely changing the scale of it's not going to be a simple matter of me and a few soldiers. That will also mean that if you have an armor, a tank, it's no longer going to be just a tank token. It's actually an armor division that might consist of 4 to 10 tanks or something. I haven't figured out those numbers. But one important thing I am going to do is separate unit types. So what I've done with the Baltec hunt, since that was all really experimental, and there were things that I discovered during that event that I really liked and wanted to expand on. One of those was scouting, people actually doing their homework, and it came down to just bot rolls. But I liked the idea of you being able to hire scouts, specific units that's their only role is to scout. Uh, and I'll do the same thing with, say, snipers. Um, Now, the commanding officers are just like imagine it's a deck of cards. You've got your basic units, and then you've got your commanders that offer that have attributes. And what you can do right now already is go to the diamond market, look at the rent tokens that are available now, and you'll see just for demo purposes, I have uploaded a few of those commanding officers. Um, and nothing there is permanent, and they're available for 1 diamond. In fact, I wouldn't bother wasting your diamonds buying them, but you can if you want to. I'll probably just expire it. But the idea there, you can see with the addition of a little text block for their backstory, you'll see that each commanding officer will have their own bonuses, and these are based on the results of the dice rules from the Baltic Hunt. It inspired those characters, but I am now making it official in their lore. A great example is Vicky. If anybody played with Vicky, um, it's been decided that she's heartless. They call her the Heartless Dane. She grew up in rough environments, and so she does really well in urban settings. So if you are attacking a city, she's going to be a lot more effective because casualties and destruction is just a matter of war to her. She'll also do a lot better in cold environments, which will be important when you're using scouts and you determine that this region is cold. You might want to dedicate her as your commanding officer. You can have more than one commanding officer. All of their attributes will combine. Sometimes that will mean they will cancel each other out, but since they have several attributes, which all of them are still up in the air, what that looks like. But that might come to your benefit. A great example. Let me visit there right now so I can better talk about it. I have 4 of them uploaded, and 2 of them don't have descriptions. But Vicky is specifically, she was associated with a squadron of pilots, both Vicky and Faye. If anybody remembers Faye Brickers, oftentimes Faye would do roles that made it look like her pilots were goof-offs. Like they just had a lot of pride and they'd fly around and be all flashy instead of doing what you wanted them to do. So her personality will reflect that, as opposed to being a stern leader that Vicky is.
Tokens will not show off, it says, yeah.
Fays might. They might also refuse orders and just do their own thing, or take unnecessary risks because they're all hot shots. That won't mean that she won't have, say, what I'm calling currently an inspiration to all flying tokens. That might change to where it looks like a plus 50% buff to flying tokens. And so we're really going to break it down to percentage wise. If you have a lot of flying units, they might become, their dice roll might have an advantage of an extra 50% on top of what they'd normally be able to do. So if a pilot was worth 15 points, as they currently are, you might be able to get them up to 25 points with the right buffs. But we're going to change how that works anyway. So I really can't say for sure what it will look like, but assume a Legion is now going to have a value of 100% per token. And someone like Cecilia Harris is going to give it an extra 50% bonus to that 100%.
Definitely like the sound of that. I think it opens up opportunities to steer the narrative both on your part when writing it, as well as for people who send and buy the tokens.
Mm-hmm. I really want people to have the opportunity to pour in their own narrative in this role play. I think that's been something we've been able to achieve with ease in the past, and then more in the present. I think people are giving me way too much power because they're intimidated by our lore. We have a lot of it, and I am kind of the lore master of the Prismatic Imperium because I keep track of everything that goes on, and I do have a lot of influence on the design of these characters, both visually and the fact that I am behind a lot of the NPCs. I don't want people to be intimidated by that. Our
Right.
characters were created by the input and collaboration of people. Marcus DePalo didn't become his quirky personality just because I decided that. That was a response to the way players were interacting with him, and he evolved to what he is now. These new characters that I'm creating do not have, most of them don't have a lot of input in our lore in the past. Cecilia's lore is entirely backed by dice rolls. She had a lot of good rolls, and so she had a lot of favoritism. And now there's an expectation that she's really awesome in battle. So that isn't me. All I did was create what she looks like. I did create her sister. Her sister she had like 2 lines in our backstory before she died. And that is the main motivator for Cecilia Harris. That's really all there is to her character. It's kind of like saying it's a blank slate. I want to create the illusion that she's a full character right now, but she's not on our Discord as an NPC because I want players to have the freedom to create their own Cecilia Harris, and I will respect whatever players contribute, and I will add that to her personality. That is the same with all of these commanding officers. I think it's just a really good, it's a subject I haven't had to touch a lot on. Albert Miller has the most history, but most of these characters that they haven't done anything in our lore besides shown up in the Baltic hunts. I want players to be able to have the freedom to turn them into their own canonical characters.
Mm-hmm. By the way, just a side note, I also like how you start introducing these emojis into the item names, which makes it really lovely to distinguish some item types by the name.
Yes.
Anyway, that's really interesting.
It looks beautiful, yeah.
I'm looking forward to more information on this and see this in action sometime. Looks really promising, and the art is also amazing.
Thank you.
It's Kevin. What do you expect?
Right.
I hope to see it in action by October 30th. Do you know why?
Oh.
Why?
Because I work really well with somebody holding due dates over my head. And the easiest way for me to get that is by creating commissions on the diamond market.
Oh, and there's one pending.
Commander TTMJ commissioned Cecilia Harris in lore for her to stand before the Duke with a restructuring program. So the military is getting an overhaul in lore,
Uh-huh.
and it is giving me a due date to actually complete this.
Clever. Okay.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm doing that a lot with it. So I have just learned today that I will not be creating a new car for the Sarasia corporation. At least not this year.
Because of the commission that ended today, right?
Correct. Yes, the
We
commission
have
ended
enough
with a
cars.
failure. So there will be no new Sarasia car added to the diamond market this week, which is a bummer because it was going to be extremely cheap and available to new players, which I realized cars and transportation has not been a big deal so far, but next season it will be a big deal, and everybody will have transportation available to them from the get-go when they join the server, but it won't be all that spectacular. So if you want to be able, I mean, the narrative is created by you. If you want to say you hopped into someone else's car with them, you can do that. But the diamond market is not here to be a limiter in your role play. Um, it's really just to inspire your creativity and keep it within a system that is easy for me to work with, and anyone else who's running missions, because we know what you're bringing to battle, we know what your capabilities are, and you're not at risk of performing actions that are just wildly outside of our expectations,
Mhm.
simply because of the items you come prepared with.
For the transportation, mostly cars, felt a bit like a prestige thing. We have seen them mentioned here and there. I
Hmm.
think there's probably that people miss some kind of way to integrate them into their role play and get the ideas. So if you have something planned there for the next season
Hmm.
to really integrate them and make them more helpful, that might
Hmm.
probably be
Yeah.
cool there.
Right now, they're really just a badge of assets. That's correct.
It's
Just
cool to show
because
them off. I mean,
I've
definitely.
created them way ahead of time, essentially.
Mhm.
So you can look at them and you can be like, it might even open up your eyes a little bit to what the vision
Yeah.
is.
My eyes opened up when I saw that the most expensive one costs 1 million diamonds.
Yeah, well, like I said, it is like Mistler said, it's a prestige thing. You don't need the 1 million car, but if you can afford it, then by all means, be like TTMJ and buy it.
And it is a nice diamond sink since inflation is always something you have to deal with, and it's kind of
It
unavoidable
is,
that we get more and more diamonds into our group since we generate
yeah.
them out of nowhere by rewarding them to people. And
Hmm.
so, of course, people will get more and more. And so, this is perfect opportunity to
I did
sink.
inflate the diamonds at the beginning of this year, in purposely as well, just to account for the fact that people want to see some bigger rewards. It's not so fun to do a mission and get 5 diamonds for it.
Yep.
And it's
The
like, okay, well, how about you instead earn 100 diamonds for that same mission? The 100 diamonds technically has the same value, but you can be a little more creative with what you can do with them in role play. Because I really want people to be able to throw diamonds out in role play. Originally the diamonds were not a currency. Um, where they came from was actually the Senate, where we used to have political debates that I'd like to see happen again. Um, and when people liked what they hear, they threw diamonds at people, as kind of like a thumbs up, basically a
Mhm.
Facebook like. But they're just chucking diamonds, and we decided, that is lore. If you want to go back to the original history, the Prismatic Imperium before it existed was just the Aisling Duval Facebook group on Facebook. And we used a Facebook chat for leadership and a Facebook group for everybody else, which was really made it difficult to interact with the player base. We were also pretty big back then just because it was Facebook and everybody was flocking to the princess. We were the official Ashling Devolve Facebook group. So we had a lot of members there. And we used the gem in our chat as our like button, essentially. And so gems were just being thrown around all the time. And, you could hold on to it in chat and make a bigger diamond. And so that carried over with us into Discord, where we decided we're just going to have a theme of actual diamond throwing in the Senate. And even if you say something we don't like, we might throw diamonds at you with intent to cause harm. So that's how it works in our lore. Now it's a currency, and if you're wondering how that actually works, the diamonds are not just diamonds that were flooded into the market. They are provided by the diamond market, and so they are etched within holographically encoded with information. So every diamond is physically backed by a diamond. It's also a virtual diamond, so you don't actually have to carry around diamond bags. I love that in roleplay where people are just flopping bags of diamonds on the table. It's hilarious. So I'm completely fine with that. But it is a virtual currency that can be backed with the actual etched diamonds.
That's a neat thought. I didn't know that. Anyway, I think I will leave the RP in mind discussion now and get back to the things I've been hinting at earlier and switch over to the open discussion. Do you want to play the theme?
Yeah, sure.
So I've mentioned the petition and the response to the petition. Did you read it perchance?
I did.
I'm not sure if I think Jeff posted it in the general discussion channel on our Discord. It was a pretty lengthy response. Jeff, in his show notes that I have here, cited one bit of it, which is please do remember that since launch there has been the base game and one paid expansion in Horizons. To this date, the majority of players have enjoyed years of free and continued development. What's your thought on the post?
I'm in the same position as Jeff. I mean, whenever I understand they don't want to be too transparent. That makes complete sense to me. Only because we've already seen what has happened when they have been more open. Players are what players are. It's going to be one thing or the other. You can't make everybody happy. As for Frontier getting, they're saying that this is worse than other companies. I'd say maybe people just haven't been observant. It's like this everywhere.
I thought similarly.
Any game you're passionate about, you're going to see the exact same thing. So I'm not so worried by the details of the petition. I don't want to be involved with it. I don't think it's fair. There are some things that I'd love to see implemented, but that's a big bundle package, which is just kind of a big community trap. And the last thing I want to see is the community try to hold Frontier hostage, because I've seen that with enough other games. And it has never worked to the vision of the company. I mean, these people do know what they're doing, and games are not easy to make. There is a lot of back and forth discussion just from my personal experience having worked on a smaller game. In my personal experience was we had a huge fight over whether or not we should display health bars on our characters or not. And we ended up deciding to go ahead and show them, even though the enemies, most of them are one hit to kill. And so, I mean, that there was a lot of discussion. It wasn't just a matter of, well, should we show it or not? There were so many factors to look at, and a game like Frontier, like Elite Dangerous, is just so much more complex that I can't even imagine I mean, there are the things that I'm like, hey, why hasn't this been fixed yet? Like, why can't I see the full badge of a NPC's rank? Why does that kind of clip off
Uh,
visually? That seems like something that would be quick to fix. Um, but I'm not in the development team. I don't know what it looks like on the inside.
we've already talked about this in the last show a little bit, that there are some bugs that can be very annoying depending on what kind of content you play in the game,
Hmm.
that have been in the game for a pretty while. Things that, for example, in the mining, or bugs with the Thargoids that exists for almost a year now. So I can understand too that there is some kind of frustration, but I'm not sure if this is really related to the issue of Frontier talking upfront about everything. I will put it
I
into the show notes.
Yeah.
The post that Jeff Ryan wrote. Too bad he's not here today. I'm sure he would love to talk about his own post himself. The gist of his post is pretty much, if I'm correct, that you can understand the whole disappointment, and that these bugs, for example, are not fixed always that quickly, albeit many kind of are. We just saw another patch. Yes, it introduced bugs, but it was also rather quick to address some of the biggest issues that came with the last update.
Mhm.
And the thing that people always point to is the public test server, and his his point is pretty much that it should be up to Frontier to decide and evaluate how helpful such a server would be, and if it's worth the additional costs and everything you'd have to pay to set that up
Mhm.
and to actually catch the bugs. Already, as I also mentioned in the last show, participation, for example, is a big topic there. You gotta get the right people to test everything, make sure everything works, and it should be up to Frontier. That was his point, pretty much, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with everything Jeff had to say in his post.
The last line is probably something I can cite. I have no issue with people raising critique, and I think the petition has definitely caught Frontier's attention, and maybe some of these points will be addressed, but I don't feel right in joining a movement that conflates various arguments using anger that is mainly coming from the broken update, which I think is
Mhm.
a good conclusion to this debate. A lot of the
Yeah.
petition stems from frustration with things in the status quo, and not so much, I think, actual issues with the way Frontier works.
Right. I know people have a hard time with this, but anytime there is a patch or an update, there's just stay away for a couple of days if you can't handle
And
bugs, because there will
never
be
play
bugs.
on patch day is a saying, not just in
Yeah.
this game. That
Just
many
don't play on
games have,
patch week.
yeah, pretty much.
There's
So
so
many
many
games
other
with it.
games out there.
Mhm.
Do something else. Go outside. I don't know.
Another discussion point that Jeff has in his show notes is the arcs grind. I'm not exactly sure what he meant when he noted this down, but I think we can still hit on this topic anyway. What's your thoughts on arcs, the way we've seen it over the first 2 weeks, with how you can get it, the different ways of getting it, how much arcs you get for it, very
For the
efficient methods?
I definitely have a comment on this.
Mhm.
For the way that it's working for a majority of us, a couple instances I've heard about excluded, I think it's working as intended. Um, a lot of people are taking arcs as this thing of like the game is now pay to play, which I think is ridiculous. And really nothing has changed except that we can earn.
Ju- Just get free content on top, pretty much. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
I don't know what the deal is. It's still it's they've only done us a favor, really. You still buy paint jobs if you want a paint job. It's just now you might be able to earn it. It will take a lot of work and probably just be worth it to buy it, if you're that desperate for it. But all they've done is introduce a new means of gaining these things, and also give them the opportunity to add more. If you, I personally feel that some ships are lacking in customization options, and I think now they actually have. If they've got income coming in from people buying this currency, because now it's so
Mhm.
much more accessible to do it.
And we've already seen the payoff. We have already seen a couple of new paint shops, like these racing, what are they
Right.
called? Racing skins. These
Hmm.
paint shops, and the Clipper has gotten a ship kit, albeit
Yep,
that is currently
that's
disabled again
yeah.
because of some bugs, I think.
What a
Hmm.
great time for me. I just wanted to get it yesterday and suddenly that beauty is gone. I was so crying.
Just wait.
Uh,
It'll come back. I don't know why it caused bugs. That's beyond me. But I mean, hey, patch week, right?
Right.
Might
But
have
we've
to
already
extend it
seen.
to patch 2 weeks.
Oh, and I think there were bobbleheads for the cockpit too. I think there were plans that are new, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I've
I
seen
haven't seen
plans
those
that were
before.
never implemented.
Okay.
I'd love to see the bobbleheads of all the power play figures, because who wouldn't want an Aisling Duval bobblehead? Um,
Me. I want an Emperor bobblehead.
I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to see your face from the front too. So, um,
Let's talk about the rates though. I haven't seen one myself yet. I'm pretty sure people started compiling charts on what activities give you how many arcs by now, but I'm not too informed on the topic. Um, but personally, I do have the impression that the arcs reward rate is not balanced too well. I mean, it certainly does its job due to the weekly cap that you have, and
mhm.
pretty much every activity giving you arcs that you can just mostly play the game and get towards your cap. However, I think the rate is a little bit frustrating because it seems to be centered around combat for now. I think one ship kill is roughly 1 arcs, but
Really?
if you compare this to missions, you can spend a whole evening running missions and you'll maybe get, I don't know, 20 arcs, and you can spend the same time killing 100 ships and you easily get many more arcs. So this seems a little bit imbalanced to me. I don't know if you have any experience with that.
I personally don't, but I believe it. Um, I don't think it's an easy thing to balance out because you
Yeah.
have grinders.
And there will
Um,
always be some kind of most efficient way to farm arcs.
mhm.
And this is what
Personally,
this
I
system
think
will turn
that's what
into.
the cap is for.
Yep.
They've got a weekly cap, so I'd say just play with the balance until, you know what, if if it becomes a little unfair for anyone who does nothing but trading and they earn it the fastest, it's not a big deal if there is a weekly cap. Um, but yeah, I really think this kind of boils down to, I don't want to go on a segue, um, but I do believe that a lot of the frustrations that we deal with over like the last 2 years have been related to the fact that the the game has changed. What is the game? What it has evolved tremendously. For anyone who's been playing the game
Mhm.
from the beginning, which is almost myself included. I was there from almost the beginning. Jeff was there from the very beginning and even prior. Um, Anyone who's been here for prior to Horizons can tell you that the game has evolved significantly.
Yep,
Um, the
definitely.
the people that were behind the scenes have moved on to other games, and you can truly feel their influence, especially when looking back. Um, so yeah, the game has evolved significantly, and a lot of people are having a hard time figuring out what exactly is the game. And I think that that discussion is happening internally as well, where they're just like, are we still a space simulator that's all about, you know, cramming it down our throats that we are a nobody, just somebody trying to get by in a very big galaxy. The game, it was all about selling us a scale that was uncomprehensibly huge.
And just
And
dropping you in this universe, yes.
yeah. And now I think we're kind of scaling back. I noticed it first when the game tried to open up new avenues because the space community, people who want to play space games is not that huge. A lot of that is because there's not a big selection of good space games. Uh, but this was a diehard game for people who are from the 80s. When games were really tough, and people who actually played the original Elite can tell you that that was no easy game, and it was extremely grindy. It's
Mhm.
just how it was. The personality of the gaming industry has had to change to reflect the changes in players. It's a new generation, and you have to evolve to survive. And it was very noticeable when the game moved into Steam because it wasn't originally available on Steam. But Steam opened up to a huge new audience. Um, but it was a different type of. It wasn't the kind of players that were hyped about Elite Dangerous before it existed, that were watching the forums and following David Braben's podcasts. This was a new type of players that discovered this game not knowing it existed. I had no idea Elite Dangerous existed, except that a friend happened to be live streaming it. I'd never
Mhm.
heard of it. And I didn't even believe him when he said the name of the game. I thought he was joking that it was Elite Dangerous. So the game has definitely evolved, and then it went on further when it was expanded to other platforms, including Xbox and then PlayStation.
I'm not sure if there's also something. Let me take the leap of faith and call it the Star Citizen factor. I know a lot of people like to compare it to Star Citizen because Star Citizen is supposed to be this do everything game. Um, do you think this also impacts what people, including the developers, expect of their own game?
Yes. I believe that the current edition of Star Citizens, what is available to players right now, is allows a lot more of a arcadic presentation where you can
Hmm.
jump in and do the things, a little bit of anything. Everything is very unapproachable in Elite Dangerous. You actually have to make decisions. Oftentimes, you have to do your homework outside of the game to determine, what is going to be the overhead if I want to suddenly jump into mining. It's not a
Yep.
game where I just wing up with a friend and go mining for the first time because it's a whole new field. I mean, it's got um its own uh technical jargon associated with it. Like, you have to be. It's got a steep learning curve in every aspect of it. Star Citizen is a lot more available to people to just jump in. And so when people make those comparisons, especially with the new audience that we've picked up over the years, they're just like, why is this game so hard? Uh, and you can see it statistically that most people who pick up Elite Dangerous don't play for longer than a week. That's it. Then you get those people that actually stick around for, if they find out they actually love it, they'll be here for years. So
Mhm.
it kind of Elite Dangerous, I'd say, is a game that either you love it or you hate it. And that you can back that up statistically.
Yep,
I
that's
even
true.
see it among my own friends. I've got a lot of friends who jumped into this game only because I have been doing artwork for it for so many years now that they're just like, "What is this game?"
And then they
And
stop because they think it's boring or something. Yeah.
I've had one friend that stuck. I've got like 10
Right.
friends that picked up the game and were like, "What is this?" So they might have even made it a month in, but it's not a game for everybody. And Star Citizen is trying to be the game that is everything and is
Right.
for everyone.
Which
It's
is
got a
probably
lot of
what makes it
facets.
take so long
Absolutely,
and all
yeah.
the issues that come with that. But yeah, I guess
Hmm.
that's a topic we should
Yeah,
probably tackle some
that's
other
its
time.
that's its own topic. But
Um,
yes, I would say that the game in its present state, Star Citizen, is approachable to anybody who wants to just pick it up and essentially demo it. No, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but
and we've
but
seen
it works as a good demo. Elite Dangerous is not a good demo game. It's not easy to be like, hey, come over and I'll show you a little bit of what this game has to offer on my computer. It's not easy to do unless you have a ship that's dedicated to every role and you've got them already preset and ready to go. It's not realistic, basically.
And we've seen steps to broaden this target audience and motivate new players already with the new player experience that we saw in the last update, which I still haven't played myself. I think you can play it over the training screen, but I've seen it on streams, and I think this is really, the game needs more like this. And if they continue on a path like that, I think more people might stick with the game.
I think it's amazing that this wasn't implemented years ago, but I am glad it's here.
Yep.
Especially since, the way that I see it, well, all of my friends who are ever going to try have already tried. But the way Frontier are seeing it is there is a new generation of people that are of age to start trying this game every single week. Like that's the way they see it. There's always a new pool of people flooding in that are ready to try a new game, and that's hard to comprehend. But there are a lot of people in the world that play games.
Yep.
And
And there
a
are
lot more
always
now than
sales.
last year.
Steam always has sales that probably bring in new people. So I think this is really important to have.
Yeah, and that goes back to Frontier's post. What was it? Zach's response to the petition, saying that hey, we need to be looking at the future of the game, and what's really going to support it is people buying new copies of it. And so that is why I've never been bothered by the trailers for the game. If you've seen the launch trailer, it is awesome. I'm talking about the launch of the game, forever ago. It's awesome, but it totally does not reflect anything you actually do in the game. But I'll tell you, it got me hooked. So I think marketing is extremely important. As if look no further than Star Citizen, a game that supports its marketing, and that's about it. They do things simply so that they can afford to market it further. I think marketing is important. We live in a world that's bombarded with marketing.
The first 20 hours of a game are also the most important one, I think, was the rule of thumb. Anyway, I think it's about time to wrap up the show. To go back to the point we started at the Arcs grind, I'll make a closing remark there that I'm curious how they will tune the rates there, probably, because as I said, last week I didn't even manage to hit the weekly cap, and well, I didn't play a lot because I didn't have much time to play, but pretty much all I did when I played was combat, and even then I couldn't hit the cap. So that was a little bit frustrating. And I'm not sure if they want to keep the rates the way they are, but I'm sure they have their eye on that. And I don't want to judge that too early. And I think the cap, as you also said, is a right approach to at least work against these, making the grind and finding very efficient ways too big of an issue. Yeah, but that's time to wrap it up. I thank you all for joining the show today, and I hope it was an interesting one, even if I had to replace Jeff Ryan in moderation today on very short notice. And thanks for attending, thanks for listening, and see you
Thanks
next
for
week.
inviting me.
Oh, you should have been here in the first place.
Yeah, maybe
We've
next
missed
week
you.
too. Or
We've
when's the
missed you
next one? Do we do
sincerely.
this every week or every month?
Every week.
All right, I'll try to make
The
it.
branch of mind is hereby invited to join if they're not too busy cooperating with the Vector and posting articles about me just like 5 minutes before.
I'm always busy.
Yeah.
That's our takeaway. I'm always busy doing good things for the Prismatic Imperium.
Well, that's the biggest lie I've heard today.
I've got a long list of things for Mistler to do.
Oh yeah.
As long as it doesn't affect side.
I've
In
The
got
bed.
longer
big
wish list.
ideas for Sight. I was
Hmm.
thinking, what if there wasn't a branch of Sight?
Nope. Nope. That's enough for this week. Okay.
about
Yeah.
frogs?
All right. Well, thank you. That concludes what I have to say this week.
All right.
Stay away from my observatory. Good night and until next week.
See you.
Yeah. Okay.
Did it play?
Well, it
Maybe
looks
just throw it
like
in post.
something is not going right again.
I guess I'll have to edit it in.
Yeah. Again.
Okay.
I mean, it says it's playing it, but it's not.
Maybe he has a hiccup, the bot, from when he auto left earlier. Anyway, I'll just continue without it then. I've mentioned the petition and the response. And the bot is on strike again.
Yep, the bot is broken. Please just edit the song in.
Will do. All right.
Then we find out the recorder won't stop. Well, you look who shows up.
Just 1 second after the show is done.
As we finished.